Good morning, second grade. It's me, Mrs. Kippis. I'm back again for our fourth lesson this week. You have made it through almost an entire week of virtual learning. Yay! Give yourself a round of applause. We have all survived our first week. We've learned many things together that will help us only get better as we move forward and work on our wit and wisdom lessons together. Let's dive right into our lesson today. To share my screen with you so you can see exactly what I am seeing. There you go. As always, before we begin, I need you to make sure that you have all of your materials. You need a quiet space to concentrate, a paper, a notebook, and a pencil. Your folder, grab your folder where you've kept all of your work at so far this week. A learning partner, find your learning partner and ask them to come sit with you so you can have someone to discuss your work with and to help operate the technology in case you have questions. If you don't have all of these things, make sure that you pause the video and get them, especially your writing that we did yesterday, because today is going to be the day that we go back and revise our work to make it really, truly amazing. Once you have all of your supplies, make sure that your brain is ready to learn. So before we start, I need you to take a deep breath, be ready to think, be ready to share your ideas, try and stay focused, and look forward to our learning on this very last day of our week. Some of the things that you are going to work on today. How did this photograph build my knowledge? So not just what you know about the photograph specifically, but what did it help you learn about the world around it? What else was happening on in that same time period as this photograph? How did I make my virtual journal entry? So you're going to make a journal entry in your notebook today. How can I keep building my knowledge? So after this unit is over, how will you keep learning more and more about this subject on your own if you find it interesting? Practice reading a passage fluently with expression. So this is going to be the last time that we read that particular fluency passage together. Next week, we will have a new one to practice each day. And it is our last day of the week. So we should by now have lots of answers to our essential question. I would like for you today to try and answer this question. So pause your video for just a moment, turn to your learning partner and tell them, what kind of things did we learn about learning virtually together? What is different than when we are in the classroom? You may have said some things like, I learned how to do an electronic exit ticket. I learned how that I would use my journal or my notebook to record my answers. I learned how I would discuss my answers with my learning partner. And finally, today, you will learn how to put all of this great knowledge that you have learned into your knowledge journal when you are done with a lesson or a unit. We are going to look a little more closely at this photograph again today. I want you to watch a little video. It's going to help us sum up all of our knowledge. Our learning doesn't just stop when this unit is over about the 1950s and the civil rights movement. There's lots and lots of good knowledge out there that we can learn. Maybe you want to do more investigating about Ruby Bridges or Martin Luther King or Rosa Parks, or all of the amazing, brave people that made such a huge impact on our country during this time. Okay, let's start watching this video. It will help us guide through how we're supposed to put our information into our knowledge journal once we are done learning. Find the right spot in our video. Be right here
As
when
you
we are
know,
done.
each of the 5 content stages has a question that guides our learning. Today we'll work through the 5th content stage, know. We will ask ourselves, how does this photograph build my knowledge? As we have been experiencing over the last few lessons, learning new things is so much fun. I know I've enjoyed learning more about the photograph and sharing this time for virtual learning with you. One way we remember what we learned is to think about it in different ways. It's important to remember that we learn so that when we need that knowledge, we can find it in our brains. For example, someday soon, you might read a book that talks about people marching for the right to vote. How could our study of the photograph help you deeply understand what you're reading? As we discussed in our earlier lessons, pausing to remember what we learned can help us hold on to that knowledge so it's there when we need it. Today, we're going to take time to record some of our knowledge. We will write a knowledge journal entry. Those of you who've been learning with Wit and Wisdom are familiar with our knowledge journals. We're going to do something similar in our virtual journals. Let's get ready. Either with your pen and paper, in your journal, or in your electronic space, make a header that says, Welcome Module, Knowledge Journal Entry. Remember, you only need to make the heading now. We'll do the writing in a minute or two. You might want to pause the video now and get your knowledge journal entry page ready. As you think about the knowledge you've built, it might help to think of 3 categories or types of knowledge we can build. Knowledge of the world. This might include knowledge about history, geography, art, literature, music, or people from then and now. Knowledge of ideas. Remember when we talked about essential meanings and big ideas in our distill lesson? We built knowledge of ideas when we think about big concepts like, why did people choose to march for so many days or so many miles? Or, what gave the marchers hope to march on? For knowledge of skills, this category includes reflecting on what skills we've learned, such as skills that help us think, read, and write better. It might also include the skill of teaching virtually, which is something I've been working on, or the skill of learning virtually for you. Take a minute and think about what you've learned in this Welcome module. Look through your journal at all the evidence and ideas you've recorded over the last few lessons and all the craft work you've done. Think about participating in these virtual lessons. What knowledge of the world did you develop? What ideas did you ponder or think about? What skills did you develop or work on? Pause the video and record some of what you learned on your knowledge journal entry page. If possible, share some of your learning with a friend or family member.
I would like for you to at least record one idea for each one of these areas. So something for how you learned knowledge about the world, what was happening around the world during this time period when this photograph was taken. What kind of ideas did you learn? What kind of ideas did you learn from Martin Luther King and from this photograph and from others who were important figures during the civil rights movement? You might think of Ruby Bridges or some of the other characters that we learned about throughout our reading together as a class. You might also add in something for our skills. So think about something that you learned or you got better at over this last few days and fill that in on your journal.
Now, let's talk about some of the learning that we've done in these past few lessons. Do you remember this photograph? Do you remember when we made the T-chart and recorded what we noticed and wondered? Let's return to your wonders. What questions did you answer? And what are you still wondering about? Pause the video and turn to that page in your journal, or find your note that you and your learning partner made.
You probably won't have these written in your journal. This is something that we did before we went to spring break when we first looked at this photograph, and we had noticed and wondered as a class. So think back to some of those notices and wonders that we had as a class before we left for spring break. Share those with your reading partner. Some of the wonders that we might have had were, where were the people going in the photograph? Why were they marching? And why was the photograph black and white?
Read over your wonders. Which questions did we answer in our discussions? Pause and record your answers. Now, look at the wonders you haven't answered.
Are there any of these questions that
Don't
we
be
haven't
disappointed
answered?
if you still haven't have unanswered questions. I know I still have more questions. That's the great thing about knowledge. There's always more to learn. In Module 4, one of the skills we'll work on is how to do research. You probably already have some practice with that and how to search for information on topics that interest you. I bet you can find some answers to your wonders about the photograph through research. Give it a try the next few weeks. You might also want to study other famous paintings or photographs. You can find many online at museum websites. Many museums also offer free virtual tours that allow you to see all the paintings and all the artifacts that they hold. You can also use the content stages to build new knowledge in any text, whether artwork or a written text. And of course, we're going to build a lot of knowledge together through our work in Module 4. What plan are you thinking sounds interesting to you? Do you want to research your wonders? Study other famous photographs at museum websites? Take a virtual tour of the museum? Or apply the new stages to a new artwork or text? What is one way that you will continue to build knowledge after this welcome module? Will you visit a museum website, go on a virtual tour, notice and wonder about a new book or artwork? Pause now and talk to your learning partner and make a plan about one way you will build knowledge after this lesson.
It's important that we continue to build knowledge. Even after we are finished reading a unit, there's still so much knowledge to gain out there about this. So you should look around and see what kind of other interesting information that you can find. Talk to your learning partner and make a plan if there's something else that you would like to find out. If you need my help, I am happy to help you. So shoot me an email or a phone call, and I will be happy to help you find more information about any of these topics.
In your journal, please make this T-chart. On one side, write.
I'm going to have you pause. I do not want you to make the T-chart. That is actually not a necessary part of what we are doing. I'm going to have you stop there then for now.
What I know, and
it's got a mind of its own. There we go. Okay. Okay. Let's take a moment and talk about just a few things before we take a little break. What are a few things that you learned this week after looking at this photograph? So I want you to look at your partner right now, your learning partner, and tell me what are 2 things that you learned this week about this photograph. Feel free to pause the video if you need more time. let's take a short brain break before we move on. To round out our week with Mr. Catman, here is a quick Go Noodle with Mr. Catman. Stand up, stretch out your arms, and be ready to finish your writing.
Brain-a-size with Mr. Catman. Fist and flat.
This is a new one. I don't think we've tried this one before.
Mr. Catman and Miss Doggy Breath are doing the can-can. They're so full of talent.
How nice that they're friends.
Partner up like Mr. Catman and Miss Doggy Breath. Partner 1, put one hand out with your palm facing your partner and make a fist with your other hand. Partner 2, place a fist on top of partner 1's flat hand and put a flat hand underneath partner 1's fist. Clawsome. Now switch hand shapes. Partner 1, turn your flat hand into a fist.
This should
and
get
your
your brain
fist
really
into a flat
energized
hand.
and ready to write.
Partner 2, turn your fist into a flat hand and your flat hand into a fist. You got it? Flat fist, fist flat. Flat fist, fist flat. Say that 3 times fast. Perhaps you need to go slower or faster. Pretty soon you'll be able to do this forever. Practice makes perfect. For real.
Yes, practice makes perfect, just like with your writing. Let's move on to our next section of writing. We have a few things that you know how to do now today. You are able to examine a photograph. You can, oh, I think this is actually the wrong slide. It got squeezed in there. Wrong direction, I'm sorry. Okay, we're going to move on. We have practiced something over and over again. And we had the chance yesterday to show someone that we knew how to write. However, in order to really execute well, we need to keep practicing over and over and over again. What happens if you continue to go to practice for your soccer game this weekend? Eventually, you will continue to just get better and better and better, and writing is just like that. So we are going to just keep practicing and practicing and practicing until you get even better. Let's watch one more short video. This one is super short. Let's see. Maybe. Yeah.
Capitalization, spacing, and punctuation in my writing. We've talked about some reasons why we use correct capitalization, spacing, and punctuation in our writing. I'm going to ask that you pause for a moment to discuss some ideas about why with your learning partner. Here are some reasons we talked about. We said we use correct capitalization, spacing, and punctuation because it's easier to read each word when there are spaces in between them, and we can see where one sentence ends and the next sentence starts when we see capital letters and ending punctuation. You might have thought of some other reasons. We have rules like these so that everyone can understand each other's writing. We have talked about some rules for capitalization, spacing, and punctuation. Can you remember what they are? Pause for a moment to tell your learning partner what you know about these rules. You have learned some rules about capitalization, spacing, and punctuation in your writing, including use capital letters at the beginning of sentences, put spaces between your words, and End your sentences with punctuation. A period for a statement, a question mark for a question, or exclamation point for an exclamation. Now we're going to excel. What does it mean to excel? Tell your learning partner what you think it means to excel. Excel means to be exceptional or to be better. This is what we will do in this stage. Make our writing even better. If you need to, take a moment to find the sentence you wrote about the photograph in the last lesson. You were asked to write about the most important parts of this photograph. You're going to look again at your sentence with fresh eyes so that you too can excel. Remember how I said that the company that I work for believes that every child is capable of greatness? When we revise our writing, we have the chance to make it excel or to make it great. This is what we will do today. Writers often use checklists to check their writing. Use this checklist to excel with your sentence. Ask yourself, do I use capital letters at the beginning of my sentence? Do I use spacing between words? Do I use end punctuation? Pause the video and check your sentence. Talk to your learning partner, and you can check each of these boxes on the checklist.
In addition to your checklist, I would like you to also be thinking about if you are using text-specific language. We've talked about this quite a bit in my classroom, and using specific language. For example, instead of saying, I think it is a bunch of people walking across the grass, you might use more specific language to tell me who. Who do you think is walking across the grass? In the photograph, I think that there is a group of people walking across a lawn or a hill. Try and be more descriptive. Use your adjectives when you are revising your words.
When I looked at my writing, I saw that I did use capital letters. I did use spacing between words, and I did use end punctuation. I hope you did as well. We have gone through all 4 of the craft stages: examine, experiment, execute, and excel. Congratulations! We've completed the 4th and final craft stage, excelling with our writing. I would like to challenge you to continue writing and make sure that you're using correct capitalization, spacing in between words, and ending punctuation.
Nice work, 2nd grade. You have almost completed your first week of learning virtually. We have just a little bit more to go, and then you will be all finished for the week. Our last part, you guessed it, is fluency. We are going to look at our speech from Martin Luther King one more time. Turn to your neighbor and tell them, what are the aspects of a really good fluency reading? If you are reading a speech, what parts need to go in it to make sure that your listener understands what you are saying? If you said pacing, expression, and speed, you would be correct. Make sure that you are using all of these things to convey the mood of what you are reading. Pause your video and read this passage to your neighbor. Before we can leave today, let's reflect on what we've learned. These questions will be important when you go to answer your exit ticket for the day. How did this photograph build my knowledge of this time period in history? Were you able to enter knowledge into your journal? So things that you learned in this unit, were you able to write them down? Did I come up with a way to keep building my knowledge? So maybe that's looking up some research online. Maybe that's looking for more photographs from a museum. Maybe you want to look up other civil rights heroes. Keep building your knowledge. Did I improve my fluency after more practice? So you've read this passage 3 times this week, perhaps more if you liked it and you wanted to read it more than once. Think about if you were able to improve your fluency in terms of piecing and expression and conveying the correct words as you are reading. Your next step before we are finished, go online and find the Lesson 4 exit ticket. Your parents or reading partners should have a link to this exit ticket. This is the 4th time you've done it this week, so I imagine that by now you are probably getting pretty skilled at this. Give yourself a hand. You have made it through your whole week. I'm going to give you a round of applause. You've completed your first week of virtual learning. Nice work. Thank you for your learning partner. Thank your learning partner for helping you. They're here with you to support your learning in any way that you can, as well as I am. So make sure that if your parents or your learning partner have any questions, they can contact me at any time, and I will get back with them as soon as possible. I'll be happy to set up an email, a phone call, or a video chat, whichever will help you learn the best. And lastly, over the next few days, make sure each day that you find something enjoyable that you like to read for 20 minutes. So here's our big surprise. Next week, when we are back together, we are going to be getting Module 4. I know this is always an exciting time when we get to start a new round of books. So these are some of the books that we'll be reading in Module 4. So starting next week, we will be heading into Module 4. See if you can talk to your partner about what you think the topic of Module 4 may be. Here is my contact information if anyone needs it. I look forward to seeing you next week. Have a lovely weekend and get some relaxing done at home. Bye, 2nd grade.